you.
Thank you, Stephanie. I will call this Plan Commission meeting to order and ask you to conduct a roll call for us.
Tim Janacek,
Here?
Sharon Christensen. Here. Arlen Kai is absent. Dave Hagman,
Here.
Chuck Soul,
Here.
Gina Larson. Here. Jessica Brynick. Here.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of our meeting minutes from last month, April 22. Everybody have a chance to review those? Anybody need more time? Okay, and I will entertain a motion for action on the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the April 22nd, 2025 meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The minutes are approved. Item number 4. Now we can bring our audience into the picture.
Yeah.
Discussion and possible recommendation to the town board for a conditional use permit for the parcel at 1451 Storytown Road. And is our petitioner here this evening?
Yes, I am.
Would you mind standing up and introducing yourself?
Hi, everyone. Wonderful housing. Am I?
I want to compliment you, Amanda, on providing a really complete and well-written application. I just wish everybody were this complete and thorough and address the points that the county needs us to. So thank you for doing that. Would you just give us a snapshot view of what it is you're going to do and when you intend to do it?
Yeah, for sure. So we are looking to get our permit to do large animal boarding. My husband and I, he is unable to be here. He's actually at a horse show this week. I leave tomorrow morning down in Illinois. And so we have a business together. It's called Bell House Equestrian. We started it, I think, in January of last year. And we train hunter jumpers. So we all show up. Actually, it's my friend and client right there, Claire. She's hoping to board there at one point. We currently have our horses up in Wanakee. But so we started this business and we really like to be able to add boarding to it as well. So we've been searching for several years now to try to find a property that we could afford and make work. And we've found this property, which is really, really quite perfect for us. So we are hoping there are currently 5 stalls in that barn. There's space for 6. So we'd like to add a 6th stall to have 6 stalled horses, and then the remainder being pasture boarded horses to live out in the field with appropriate shelters and sheds, which are the little blue squares there that we would be hoping to add. So the acres for this property, there's 20 there. It's kind of, you can see, split down the middle. So it's roughly 10 and 10. And so we would have 14 horses is a number we're kind of looking at, which is well under the county's limit of 20 before you have to start doing some additional paperwork with like the DNR for wastewater management and all of that. And yeah, I think that's kind of the overview. I'm sure there's a lot of questions, but that's what we're kind of hoping to do.
Okay, a sale or your purchase of the property is in the works right now?
Yes, yep. So we are just finalizing our agreement, hopefully get something signatures this week, which would be great. One of our contingencies is being able to get this permit because can't really enter into this property without being able to make money from the boarding to afford it. So yeah, so we're hoping to do that this week. We have our closing date, I want to say like July 16th or something, potentially beforehand. Because Max and I are selling our house to move in there. So if we get that done early enough, it might be like an end of June situation. And then we would start boarding pretty much as soon as we get into the property. It'd be after like the town board meeting for Town of Oregon and then the Dane County as well. So it'd be after that date. And we would start with my personal 2 horses, Claire's horse, maybe 1 or 2 others, and then slowly kind of grow as we can add in some fencing in the sheds.
And you intend to occupy the house that's on the premises,
Yes.
is that right?
Yeah.
As your home?
Yes.
I do have a few questions here and there, but are there any members of the commission who would like to ask questions at this time?
I guess I have one question.
David?
You said the barn will house 6 horses and turn out during the day, the remaining will be pasture boarded. What happens in the winter time? Do the horses stay outside all the time in the winter, or will you need?
Yeah. Yeah, so with the two sheds, there'll be 3-sided sheds. Whereas ours are gonna be fancy and have front doors as well, so we can kind of close them in on like the very polar vortex days, but they're also blanketed in the winter, which helps too. Horses shockingly actually prefer it to be outside, which we all hate. There's a lot of barns in the area that do strictly pasture boarding. We are doing the stall boarding just because a lot of our horses go to competitions, and so they need to be stalled to get used to the stalls of the show. So that's why we had the mix.
Chuck, you had a question?
I got just a couple of questions. You mentioned in here, where are you gonna store your feed and your hay? You mentioned in here, you're gonna have a couple trailers for that. Is that in the description, or is that something in addition you're gonna be adding?
So that's in addition, so we have currently 2 trailers right now. One's a 4-horse and one's a 2-horse, so we use strictly for trailering. At the time when I wrote this, we were thinking about maybe doing trailers. Now we've maybe transitioned or thought to do like the little, like the plastic tarp things from like Menards or Home Depot where you can like park a single vehicle in there. They'd be under.
Houses, like who?
Yeah, like kind of a
Is that-
metal structure with like the tarp over it, yeah. They're under the 120 square foot requirement for permits, so we'd probably get 2 of those, one for hay, one for shavings to start. And then eventually we'd maybe want to put up like a real structure, but we'd go through the permitting process for that.
Okay, and then you mentioned too in your application, 2 trailers on your property. Are your plans to allow people who board their horses there to leave their trailers there, or is your plan that they have to take those home?
I think our plan would probably be to take them home, just because there's not a ton of space to be able to park them. Would that be something that a part of the permit we wouldn't be allowed to, or just for us to kind of?
I'm just curious because
Yeah.
I've seen some where the trailers are there. Personally, I don't like it when there's 10 trailers there. As a neighbor, I
Sure.
wouldn't like that, but if there's 2 and they're yours, I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
But if the more trailers, to me, you didn't put whether you would have more trailers or not. I was just curious on that.
Yeah, most of our clientele don't have their own trailers. They rely on, that's why we have 2 to be able to bring our clients. A lot of people use them for like emergencies. But since we have the 2 there, like, I don't think they would really get them. And it's a lot of like, obviously the barn we're at does not allow trailers. So we park them down at the airfield down here. So there's plenty of places that people can park them instead.
And Stephanie, real quick, was there notice for this meeting with the neighbors?
We
No,
don't
it's
do
for
the
the board
public
meeting.
hearing.
Okay.
We don't do the public hearing. Dane County does the public hearing now. So yes, the neighbors are notified, but they would do Dane County's
Okay, I
public
was just
hearing.
curious because.
Yep. Yep, they do get the same notification, like we used to double notify, basically, we would do it here and have a public hearing for a CUP. Or whatever, split or something like that, but now that the things have changed with the conditional use permits, the public hearing portion of it is held at Dane County. So they're notified in the same manner that we would do it, but just by them, with the same, with the petition materials that you see today.
Has that occurred already?
It should have occurred already because June, their actual ZLR meeting is like June 24th or something like that. So that they would have already been notified that.
And my last question is, in the answer to question number 1, you put number of horses will not exceed the acreage of the property. And that's 20 acres, right? But then you put it'll only be 15 horses at most.
Yeah, because the way that we have it set up is that like this is our preferred amount of horses for the grass space that we have.
Right.
So like our intention is not to have any more just because we want an appropriate amount of grass per each horse. But in the off chance that like somebody comes in and there's like a transition point where they have an extra horse and we can kind of sneak them in for a couple of months, I didn't want it to be restrictive of like we physically can't have another horse. So getting us kind of those like few buffer numbers is helpful for like transition periods within the business, but like across the board, we keep it at that kind of like 14, 15 number just for grass space.
Okay, so it's sort of a contingency for you if you
A
need.
little bit of wiggle room, yeah.
Well, yeah, that number is significant because a conditional use permit or a CUP will set a limit, could set a limit on the number of horses, and we don't want to impair your business by setting a number too low.
Mhm.
On the other hand, we know you can't exceed 20. Is that the number the county has informed you?
Yeah, so it's the one animal unit per acre, and so 20 horses.
As a one more, just think, as a non-horse person, explain the manure situation to me. Explain how, and the flies, what do you do? Just out of curiosity, how do you do that, so the neighbors aren't
Yeah.
impacted by that?
Yeah, so what our plan would be is to take the manure and put it into a compost pile, kind of in the center enough of the property that it's away from the property lines. And then what we would do is we would take it in manure spreader and we would spread it on the fields, kind of rotating them. So the bottom kind of right side of the graphic there, you can see kind of like pasture one, and it's like split into a couple sections. What we would do is we would subsection it just a little bit more with some like temporary fencing, and we would spread it on one side and let it sit, and then we go to the other side, and like to swap the horses kind of back and forth. So to kind of compost it down. And then there are supplements you can feed horses that are like feed through, that a lot of places do. So they eat it, and then the flyers like less attractive manure. Shockingly works. Fine for the horses. It's kind of like a miracle supplement. So we probably do something like that, as well as like fly spray systems. So
I never would have known
yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, we don't like flies either, so we'll think of any system we can to get rid of them.
Thank you.
You already have space where people can turn a kind of a sizable trailer around, right? Is that primarily for your use? Because you'll be usually transporting?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you'd anticipate expanding the driveway in any way at this time?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a fine enough width, and then we would just have the kind of little turnaround space, just to make it easy on our part. My husband's great at driving the trailer, and that's a great thing. My turn radius being
I
more
appreciate you saying something nice about your husband's driving.
He's quite good. I'm learning. I backed it up the other day.
Well done. And you said you have a sign up front, with the name of your business on it, I assume. Are you aware that the town has a sign ordinance?
Yes, I think I've read through them. I don't remember all the details off the top of my head.
There's a sign you are planning, is it gonna have lighting on it?
I think so.
Can't imagine why you'd want overnight lights on.
No, it's just so people don't go just driving past and be like, I couldn't find your place. So, and that's also not a deal breaker for us either. It's gonna be a fairly small business for us. So people can find it. I'm not worried about having a sign if the town doesn't want it.
Well, we're not against having a
Okay.
sign, it's a question of how big and how gaudy.
Yeah, I think just like a nice little wood one. Oh, awesome. So
Right, you seem interested in fitting into your environment with your niche over here.
yeah, I really love this farm, so I'm willing to do just about anything to make it work.
There are already trails in the woods?
Yeah, we when we went and looked at it, it was terrible weather, so we did not wander back there to see the trails. But both Ruth, who has since passed away, she was the owner, and her son Peter said that there were trails back there previously. They just haven't maintained them in years because she hasn't had horses there for a while. So we'd go back and probably just clear out some of the underbrush and find them. But I want to say maybe you can kind of see some of the patches that like work their way through.
There's stuff
Um,
going on back there.
Yeah, we wouldn't do any sort of major clearing, just to kind of revamp the trails that's already there.
Have you had any contact with the neighbor to the south?
Mm-mm.
They have any idea, do you know whether they have any idea what you plan to do?
No,
Okay. They'll get their chance later on to voice their concerns. I wondered if you had some informal contacts.
I think it's interesting. I have horses on my little 4.5 acres. And we have, our barn is an old, smallish, but dairy barn. So it's a big barn, but not for a dairy barn. And it's right across the driveway from the house, which seemed really close. But your barn looks like it's right against like a perpendicular or adjacent to the house. That's interesting.
yes, and it's nice. So the like the house is the square, and then there's the garage, and then the barn. And so you obviously can get from the house into the garage, and then the door that leads out the garage is one that goes directly into the barn.
So if it's cold, you don't have to
So
go
it's
outside,
like,
basically.
what, like 3-5 feet of space, that's kind of like, right, they can fit right into it. Yeah, it's very nice.
Interesting.
We are in the process of taking a new look at our CUP procedures and requirements. And one of the things that I would like to have our commission discuss, maybe with some input from you, is what happens when the business closes?
Mhm.
Or when you decide to sell the business to somebody else. We need to decide ahead of time what's going to happen to this permit, whether it can go to a new owner, whether the new owner must come in and make a case for renewing it. And in that situation, we'd review what kind of problems there were on the property and tighten things up or loosen things up. But we have to decide to recommend to the board whether or not your permit would end when you and your husband no longer own the property. First of all, a legal question, do you anticipate that the corporation would own this property, or would you and your husband own it in their own names?
I wanna say we'll probably do it in our own names, maybe we'll create an LLC specifically for it, that's not a part of the business. I'm not sure, my dad works in commercial real estate and has a bunch of ideas of like how the property should be owned. And we haven't quite become settled on that one quite yet.
Did you say your dad then?
Yeah.
Oh. Would it be a so-called deal breaker if the permit would end when your business changes or you decide to sell to a new owner?
No, I don't think so. A lot of the properties we've looked at have permits like that, that just kind of end with the ownership. And the way that this property is set up, and one of the reasons that we really liked it, is that it's not, you don't look at it and you're like, yeah, that's a commercial horse property. It's not a 20-stall barn. It's not, you know, a huge space. We could turn around and still sell this as like a hobby farm that someone has a couple of horses there. So it's not like we'd be turning around and having to sell this commercial horse property without the permit. So it wouldn't be a deal breaker for us, no. Because I don't think it would hurt the value at all.
Any other questions from our commissioners?
Well, one thing I know, I have a friend who has a farm, stable and training, horse training kind of operation that's on a smaller scale, but she also has a home on the premises and really found that she needed to have a bathroom for people other than her home. Because, you know, people have muddy boots and it's like invasive and so on. She ended up creating a compost toilet situation. I don't know if that skirts any issues, but I would think that that would be something you need to consider, because it's really not very workable if you have, and you know, how many horses would be boarded? Like 5 or 6 horses, 6 would be stalled, and
Yeah.
and so you'd have a lot of foot traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an issue with setting up another bathroom or something in the barn? There is.
There is, it would be another process to add sanitary fixtures to any building other than your house. It's not like it's impossible, but they would have to apply for it separately or with this, but they didn't, so.
And Amanda, you're already aware of that
Yeah,
requirement?
we left it off, just one, we didn't really have it in the budget to put it in right away. And 2, we kept this as a bare bones and like minimum that we need to work as possible to make sure that we could get it through to get in there and get started, with the intention of maybe down the road in a couple of years reapplying for some like additions if we wanted to, like a bathroom. My question is, like, a lot of barns in the area have porta potties, and is that something that would be allowable in the permit since it sounded like a sanitary fixture? Or would that
I would
be-
say that it would be, I don't know that would have much to do with your conditional use
Okay.
permit, but it's just that the whole idea of the sanitary fixture. It's mainly like the plumbing, the fact that you have a flushable toilet, like
Mhm.
that's their main that's
Mhm.
like zoning's main concern.
Yeah,
When you put that as a part of your conditional use permit in a building, then when you don't own the property anymore, you would have something in your building that nobody else can get that was specifically, applied for
gotcha.
through that.
Mhm.
So a temporary, we would have to ask zoning about about the porta potty
Mhm.
situation, but
Yeah, I figured it
The
would be,
main
90% of the barns around here have.
yes, the
Porta potty.
sanitary thing is mainly for that major plumbing that has to happen. Yep. And how it's not a temporary thing, it's pretty hard to make a bathroom a temporary thing.
What kind of writing?
We do numbers.
Is that what was there before? The previous business?
I wanna say she did dressage and breeding. You might have done eventing. I think, yeah, dressage definitely later in her life for sure.
Do you have any stallions on the premise? No. No.
No, we don't want that kind of trouble.
Trouble, that's good. Anybody else need to know anything more about the bathroom situation? We have to we don't have to put a requirement in the CUP about porta potties or anything like that. People are gonna be living on the premises, they're not gonna permit an open latrine.
They would have to ask zoning if having one outside of a building, if it's inside of a building. We wouldn't probably cover that anyways, but ask zoning if one outside of the building would comply with the conditional use permit. I don't think that it even matters for a porta potty, just because it is a temporary structure. It's temporary, you can take it out anytime.
So what is, not to belabor the point about this topic, but a porta potty, I'm thinking, there's like the Buc-ee's thing. And then I think what my friend has that I'm thinking of is like this big plastic thing. It's like a porta potty in that respect, and it's composting. And I think it's permanent, like she's keeping it. It's not a rental kind of thing. Are there differences or distinctions to be drawn for our purposes between
The
these two
plumbing
things?
portion of it,
It's just the
so
plumbing.
there's not any permanent plumbing that happens. You can't rip out like in-ground plumbing when you leave, like you wouldn't be like, I'm taking that out. So then the next person who buys the house, who might not qualify for a conditional use permit to have a sanitary fixture in an outbuilding, which most of our properties, you cannot have that in. Then
Viewed as like a problem, like they wouldn't want to have that, or that they would have.
it's not allowable by zoning. Right, unless you have a conditional use permit for a sanitary fixtures outside of your home.
Right.
So that's the major plumbing fixtures. So I don't know about that situation, like for zoning purposes, but I think they may even consider that a temporary structure, even though she intends to keep it forever.
And there's no plumbing involved
No,
whatsoever.
yes, it's not it's kind of like the hoop buildings and stuff, zoning doesn't really get involved with those, because at any time they can be taken away. But if a concrete pad was poured, they would be involved with a concrete pad, it's less temporary then. So if you poured a concrete pad for your hoop house, you would have to get a zoning permit for that, because it's extending any permanent structure to your property. But I'm guessing you just have a gravel or dirt floor, yes, for hay and feed and stuff.
Yeah. Any other members of the commission want to speak up or ask questions concerning when the CUP would terminate?
I'm sorry, I have one more question. Jumping, it's a dangerous sport. I was bucked off my horse one time and I broke bones in my hand, and nobody was around, oddly enough. Usually there were people, but there wasn't anybody, so I had to take the saddle off. My finger was pointed like this way. And drive myself to urgent care. I've got it in shock, probably. So there's a higher degree. I wasn't jumping. I wasn't doing anything extraordinary whatsoever. I think I was walking my horse at the time. So is that something we should talk about? You know, is there a good chance that there will be people, young people, say, jumping their horses on their own? And what, you know, what if nobody's around and the neighbors are the only ones who are aware that somebody's down or something like that? Like, is that something that should be considered?
Yeah, we're gonna have very strict rules, especially around jumping. You don't get a jump alone on, so you don't get a jump outside of a lesson with our professional, which my husband's a professional. And even riding, like someone else has to be on property, like that is a non-starter for me, for sure. And we've got a lot of insurance right now. We're gonna add a lot of insurance too.
Excellent.
Yeah, and that's, to me, that's more a matter of the business owner's responsibility and liability, and the town would not have any liability for that situation, as much as we want to make sure our citizens are safe.
Right.
But so do you. You have an financial incentive for making sure everybody's
Yeah.
safe. Okay.
And you're limiting the riding area to that one section on Storytown? And then the barn and then the woods, right? The pastors don't have any riding per se?
Yeah, we're gonna keep those off just so riding around doesn't hurt the grass. And then some people will put like they'll do like a perimeter fence line, and then they'll inset like the actual pasture fencing. And then people will sometimes ride around that. I don't think we're gonna do that. We might in the future, just because it's a nice safety thing that if a horse gets out of a paddock fence, there's another one to stop them, and like chances of them getting out of that one is lower. So if we end up doing that one day by adding that second in layer fencing, we might kind of like ride around the paddock. But no, we'll keep it. They're not gonna be like in the fields riding around, just those 3 spaces.
So it's fair to say most of the riding will be out of the neighbors and public side, other than it's gonna be in the barn or in the front or in the woods.
And are you gonna be doing like lessons in boarding, as opposed to say horse training, where there'd be a lot of coming and going of different horses and changing up of the herd configurations and such?
Yeah, I would say it'd stay pretty much the same. Not a lot of expecting people to come and go, except for horses that'll leave to go to a competition for a week and then the same horses come back. But it'll be people in the area have their horses there for hopefully a very long time. Those are the best clients that stick around.
So people wouldn't just like bring their horses there for the spring tune-up and then take them home?
I'm glad to see you've got room for parking spaces. Because the town is becoming increasingly aware of problem conflicts that can arise from parking on our roads or side, close to our narrow roads, such as Storytown.
Yeah.
There's bicyclists, and sounds like there aren't gonna be horseback riders.
Not on the road, no.
But I think it would behoove you to encourage your customers and clients to park on your property and
Yes,
not along the town road.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
I don't know that we can require that, as long as they're legally.
There's no parking on town roads anyways
Yeah,
for
there's no-
a period of time,
Yeah.
so by ordinance, that's already covered.
Okay, you got that taken care of then, Stephanie?
Yeah, it's just already covered.
Okay.
For everybody, not just a business.
Glad you have the parking spaces for them then.
Mhm.
Okay, any other questions?
Got a couple follow-up ones that we've been talking here. I guess maybe Stephanie will have to help me out with this one.
Yeah.
Existing zoning is RM 16, and I see we're going, I would say, down to RM 1. What was the reason for that?
I don't know where that.
I don't have my definition if you move it in front of me.
I mean, rural mix one means 1 acre plus, so I don't know if that's maybe, you know what, that's probably not correct. I bet you that is, let's see if we can open that up. You know what that is? See that little dot there? It might mean that it cut off at 16. I'm guessing they're gonna probably keep your zoning.
Yeah, I wasn't.
I was just curious if there was
No, I think
something you
that,
wanted to do that you had to go down to 1 out
Yeah,
of
no.
16.
no, I bet you it is.
The 6 is below.
Yep, it's right here.
Yeah.
It's just
Okay.
an expansion of that thing.
Okay, so zoning's staying the same.
Yep.
Okay, that clears up my administrative question. And then just to follow up with the manure mitigation, you said you have a compost pile. And if you can't use it up, or you said you're gonna give it away, if you've got a pile come spring or middle of summer, you got a manure spreader, you're gonna try and spread that on the property then, or?
We'll spread some on the fields, but we'll probably give most of it away. I'm not anticipating a lot of manure. Most of the big pallets of manure come from a lot of the bedding that's used in stalls. And since we're only gonna have 6 stalls, it's not gonna accumulate a lot. So I'm not anticipating we're gonna have a lot hanging out. But there are plenty of farmers who die for horse manure. So we'll give it away.
I mean, I guess a worst case scenario,
Mhm.
if you have to spread something, you'll just spread it on one of these full pastures.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah.
And that'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll section it off so that they're on a part of the grass only, or and then they'll sit, and then we'll switch them over. Yeah, a little bit of rotation.
That's all I got.
Okay, great, very good. Anybody else?
I have a comment. Oh, no, go share.
Sure.
Mine's a comment. Mine's an administrative. So.
I would like our commission to put an end date on this, and not a specific end date, but the CUP runs with these people only. And should they sell, or should the business change hands, or whatever, that anyone taking over would need to reapply for conditional use. I think my personal feeling is that our commission needs to set a precedence so that we don't have issues that arise from somebody taking over an existing CUP that may not meet all of the requirements that we have. And each CUP can be for a different purpose. It might not be for horse boarding. I mean, they might tell us that it is, but they might assume that a CUP can encompass any kind of business. So I would like to see the commission put a deadline or a date or a specific event on this CUP.
Refresh my memory, Dane County's planner last meeting, he was concerned about that exact situation, correct? And didn't he say he was more concerned when the CUP was issued in the business's name as opposed to the individual's name, or am I misremembering that?
Yeah.
Because of the issue with the business is if she sold the business name could still exist.
Right.
And the CUP could still exist for that business, but if it's in their name, do we still have that concern? I don't know the answer to that, but that was my question on that.
Well, if they move that business somewhere, does that CUP wouldn't go with them?
Correct.
So a CUP, to my realm of understanding, is for this property only, the business run by you people. So when that situation no longer exists, then the CUP no longer exists.
Well, I think that's especially appropriate for this kind of business where, we've had this whole conversation about safety and, the steps you're taking to mitigate this and that. The next person, you should have that same conversation and ask them, is there going to be someone on the premises? What's your policy about jumping, alone or not, et cetera, because it is that kind of business where there's some significant risk, and, next people might be doing something completely different that involves insane stallion Friesians or something, running amok. So I think that is a good idea.
And I think it makes it easier for the plan commission and the town board, knowing that there is an end to it at some point in time, and that there can't be any problems arise with the CUP after they are no longer using it. There are no issues that the town has to deal with because that CUP no longer exists. And if someone else wanted the same type of business on that same property, that's great, but they need to come and get a new CUP or get us to reapprove the one we have where we limit hours, days of the week, certain specifications that this CUP has.
I mean, they could sort of base it on this, but just come in and have this conversation again. Do you have any concerns about that?
This is, I realize we're having not the best communication with our town attorney, but I'm struggling with the wording for this because as we said, the business could pick up and move and relocate to another township.
And the conditional use permit doesn't follow it,
No,
correct?
but it stays on the
It
land
stays on the land, yes.
forever or until there's a change of ownership.
Change
Is it
of ownership,
forever
I
unless
think
you
is
put in
the,
a note or something?
is the condition that you guys are talking about right now.
I would say it would be change of ownership.
And the reason I'm worrying about the lawyers is because the ownership can change for any number of reasons
Mhm,
besides deciding to sell and move somewhere else. Divorce,
mhm,
death of one of the owners,
mhm.
bankruptcy, things like that. So that would be a change of ownership. Would any of those events trigger the need to come in and seek a new CUP? Is that kind of what everybody's thinking?
I think that's what people are thinking. But I don't know if they could.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Either.
change of ownership for the reasons that we mentioned, you know, that to have that conversation again about safety and, you know, precautions and things like that. Best practice.
Yes, I think that what you're saying, Tim, is some of those things that you mentioned are like beyond control of maybe the current owner, you know,
Right, exactly.
Spouse
what I was
passes
trying to-
away.
no,
or yeah, separation happens or something like that. And would that be a reason to bring that person back
But
in?
why wouldn't
I would-
it be? I mean, if you've
I
got a
wouldn't
different
think-
person.
No,
running the
it's not a
shop.
different person. It's just
just
one or the other
less,
people
right,
is what
less.
Tim's trying to say.
could be
It would
Amanda
say
and-
if something happens to
and her-
Amanda, does her husband have to come reapply without her? That doesn't make a lot of sense.
So I would,
It's the same owner.
Could it be handled the same way you would like the joint ownership of a home?
Yeah, exactly. It would stay with one or the other. And even if the business name changes, that's not change of ownership if Amanda and Matt just wanna
So the
share your
permit would be
name or
issued to
something,
them.
I don't know, you know, it's not a change of ownership.
It'd be issued to Amanda and Matt, not to the business, but to Amanda and Matt. because
That's
they're the
how
ones
they
on the land.
applied for the conditional use permit, is Amanda applied, but I know that in other circumstances, maybe not in conditional use permit stuff, but in like ownership of land here in the township, where we have to go through ownership of land as it was in 1995, there's a lot of different names for the land, right? So as it was applied for, if it was John Brown, and I'm not actually picking on John Brown, I'm just using the most common name that I can think of. John Brown, but he's under a trust, that's under a trust now. It's, you get what I mean? So it's like the ownership never changed.
Right.
But it may have. So if John Brown is still part of that trust, exactly. So there's some wording that would probably have to happen to not have examples like what you were giving.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to deter the actual current owners from just going about their daily business if something.
Well, if
should
they get
happen.
advice that it's beneficial to them to put their property into trust, which they are still
Mhm,
beneficiaries of, that shouldn't affect things.
I
right,
wouldn't think so.
So we want to word it the right way to make sure
yes.
bad things don't happen.
And you know, the county might already know exactly how to word that, because like Ben was saying, he's like, this has happened before, where they've done it with the ownership of the property, the sale.
Well, why don't we throw it onto the town board then, and if we're going.
I know
to-
that they wanna recommend that too, you know, that's what they have.
If we want to, if we intend to vote in favor of recommending this to the town as is,
It would be a condition.
and tell them that we're recommending that the permit be issued to these folks, but terminate upon a significant change of ownership or something like that. Make it vague enough that they can worry about the details, but.
And I can add,
Get the
I can-
idea across.
ask our planners for example language, for sample language.
Right.
Before the town board sees it too. So then they can say, this was the condition, this is the plan commission, and it's their intention. I know it's the town board's intention to do that, because they asked us to look into it, so. And then hopefully have some sample language that they can feel more comfortable about.
I would just say in another situation, and you said your husband is a horseman as well, and an expert one. But I could imagine there might be another situation where the husband is not at all into this. I mean, I knew of a small farm where the husband was really into the animals and, got all these horses and everything. Actually didn't really know that much about it. And then he left, went to the West Coast and left his wife to deal with it all. And she didn't know anything about any of it. And it was really, in some ways, a very bad situation for the animals. So if there was another situation where you'd have, where you'd entertain the idea of co-ownership, you'd want to make sure that both owners are experts in managing this business of animals, especially. And if they weren't, I would not, and animals or something similar were concerned, I would suggest going this route. But since both of them do know what they're doing, I think you could handle it that way as joint ownership. CUP goes with both of them.
And if the spouse takes off for California in this case, it would always, the remaining spouse can always come in and say, this happened, I want
They
to,
just,
I want you to change the CUP.
yes, or they just don't want it anymore. So once it goes, if it's not in use for like a year, it expires.
Yeah.
So then anybody would have to reapply for it, including the owner.
Okay, so the problem would take care of itself.
Yeah, that's intentionally, it expires with non-use. So if something like that happens.
Gina,
One more, just, I guess, topic for thought. Is there anything tied to the requirement of owner occupied conditional use? I mean, I think we've been chatting and the idea is that you're there and there's an element of care and, a next level because you're present at the business every day because you live there. Is that something that we would want to consider being a condition of this particular conditional use permit? There could be an event where they decide to move to town and maybe staff rent the house. Is that still acceptable? Is that something we can make conditional?
or do you want to?
Yeah, or do we want to? I just a thought. I guess.
What do you think about, could you envision running that business not being on the premises? Is that something that,
I think we could, that is not our intention at all. I plan to never have to move again. I've moved too many times, I have way too much stuff. So like, that's not our intention, because like, my dream is to have my horses in the backyard. Like, I don't want to have to ever leave my property. But we could do it. There are farms in the area that do run the business like that they don't live on site, that they're either isn't a house or they rent it out, or for whatever reason they do that, and that's fine. I don't love it for like emergency purposes, like heaven forbid there's a fire, so not our intention, could be done, wouldn't be a deal breaker for us on this permit.
plus there's the question of that would we put a condition on it that if you go on vacation, the two of you for a week, you must have somebody, on that. who can get-
That seems excessive,
Yeah.
but I think the rental thing is what I was thinking of if they decide to not live on the premises anymore. And something that's not them.
What I would say is they would violate their CUP if they were rented it out. And you could bring, Dane County could bring an action against them. That would be one
Because they
thing.
applied under the premise of.
Yeah, they said prospective owners will reside on the property.
That clarifies
upon
it, I think.
closing.
That's kind of.
I mean,
You've agreed to
granted,
already.
it's not as quick, but
Yeah.
you could do that in the alternative too.
Yeah.
If they don't reside on the property, their CUP isn't as indicated, and you could say they're in violation.
And if the animals get neglected or maltreated, there's other avenues of taking care of that.
That's
Bring them
a
to
good
your
point.
house.
Right. Well, no, but that's an interesting, I totally wouldn't expect this to happen on your farm, but just as a matter of principle, what? If somebody does have a cup for their ranch and the neighbors notice the animals are being neglected, what recourse, do you know?
Yeah, they go to the county and
Yeah.
make a complaint.
Then that's the enforcement arm. They come out, they investigate all complaints, big, small, anything. They make them do what they're supposed to be doing. They give them time frame to do that. They will write fines. They will make you go to court. This has happens kind of all the time. So
They said last meeting, unless somebody complains,
correct. They're not driving by the house weekly and checking on every property in the town or in Dane County ever. They're not doing that, but they investigate all complaints.
Yeah, we're lucky we live in a county that has that kind of dedication. to
Yes,
that.
and they're swift about it. I just had one like, hey, can you see if this has a zoning like, is there something happening here? And they were out there that day and answered me back that day.
Well, people are gonna be watching.
Yeah, your neighbors might, and they might be out, you never know, sooner than later.
Do we have any other questions that Amanda might answer for us?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment about just to let you know. Because I don't think you don't live here now in the township,
Mhm.
but the facilities for the trash and recycling removal. The township provides you, and there probably already is some on Ruth's property unless she applied for an exemption for whatever reason, like she already had garbage and trash, but
Mhm.
they provide you with pelletary and it's the one recycling, one
Mhm.
garbage and weekly pickup for trash, bi-weekly for anything above that you would contract with pelletary.
Okay.
For this business, if you were to ever think that that wasn't enough for you for just your regular refuse, like your regular trash and recycling, and you would qualify if you had some sort of your own recycling or trash receptacles out there, like you contracted with pelletary or with
Mhm.
waste management to have something larger than these bins.
Mhm.
You can also get a couple bins out there.
Okay.
You just have to call them and get them. And then really at our facility, at a recycling facility or a refuse facility, we don't have, you can't just take regular day-to-day trash there. So, but you can take your lawn cleanups and all of that stuff there, and they have like a metal bin and a large item dumpster and stuff. But just so you know, because it just says as dictated by the town, well, I just want to tell you what you're getting into and
Perfect.
what your options are.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
And also word to the wise, we don't call it the dump anymore.
No?
I mean,
People do, but.
Yeah.
But that's okay. That's,
so we have to correct ourselves sometimes, yes.
okay. Anybody else have any questions before I call this for a vote? All right, is there a motion? Is there a motion for action on this application?
I'll make a motion to approve DCP CUP 2025-02662 with the additional 2 conditions. If the owner sells the property, the CUP ends at that time. If the owner sells the business, the CUP ends at that time.
Whichever comes.
Any problems with that? Before we get into the discussion? Okay. Is there a second to David's motion?
I'll second.
Discussion. Anybody got a problem with understanding the motion? It's for recommending to the
If
town
they
board.
change the name of the business, does that make any
If they
difference?
sell the business is what I
If they
think.
sell the business.
Transfer, sell it. Okay. Stephanie, you understand our intention. If you got better wording, feel free. But I think David has capsulized what it is we're trying to say.
Yeah, I wrote with expiration of, with sale of property and or sale of business, expiration of CUP would come with sale of property and or sale of business.
How about a friendly amendment and call it a transfer rather than a sale?
No, yeah, transfer or sale of business.
Yeah, maybe
Transfer,
something like that.
the transfer,
Broader.
cover it both.
Don't worry about this before.
Yeah, we'll get some good.
We're very worried about it.
So Chuck getting a horse and thinking, I'm gonna buy this business, I'm gonna go big time with it.
Not a chance.
That's what I'm trying to cover.
Not many 6'5" guys on horses.
Okay, are we ready to vote? All in favor of the motion recommending approval to the town board with the conditions David mentioned? Signified by saying aye.
I,
Anyone opposed? Okay. Madam Clerk, you record that as 6-0.
Got it.
Thanks, Amanda. Your business is concluded. You're welcome to stay here with Clara. I'd like to say the bar has been open, but we don't have a bar.
good luck in your business.
Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I hope everything goes well for you.
Thanks. Thanks so much. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Item number 5 on our agenda, the appointment of current member Chuck Soul and Gina Larson for terms coming in June. Oh, smoke, 2028.
Feels like a long.
They're 3 years at a time. So the town board accepted that with the condition that you and Gina were interested in continuing your appointment.
You were talking out of it too? I served my time, you gotta serve all this. No, I'm joking. I've enjoyed every minute of working with this group. Every minute.
Been here a while.
Okay, so what are you looking for from Gina and Chuck?
The exception, like
They're willing to
accepting
accept
that they're willing,
appointment?
yep, and then they'll just sign the oath after, you don't have to do that.
You need time to think about it, or do you wanna?
I already told her. So.
Yep, he said
He's
yes.
on board.
He said I should put a condition on him. So.
I told her she should put that I send back the direct deposit form.
Yeah, that's good.
In order to continue this.
I've never sent that back. 3 years I haven't sent that back, have I?
He's the only person in the town of Oregon who gets paid by a check, I don't know. I'm just.
How did he get
There
by
might
with
be a
that?
couple, there might be a couple.
I tried that and it didn't work.
You get in trouble,
I got elbowed too. I tried to.
Yeah.
I don't wanna go paperless.
you get in trouble.
See there. I like having a
Yeah.
check. I take to the bank and hand it to them and they give me a receipt.
Nudge.
My kids do it on their phone. I'm like, how do you do that on your phone?
You don't know how to do that?
I still write out checks to everybody.
Well, I do too.
I
But you can catch somebody's check on your phone.
Lovely.
Okay, so yes, I got a yes from Chuck and I'll just have you sign it after the meeting. And then Gina?
I accept.
Well, thank you, guys.
I'm so
The
excited.
town board
Good
was
deal.
very pleased to get that news.
Yes, they were like, yes, please.
Item
Great.
number 6, public comment. Is there anybody tuned in on
I
this?
don't think so. I actually did not hear anybody get on. Looks like I'm the only participant. Oh, I'm the only one. I was listening just to see.
Okay. So there's no public comment. Communications, always rather vague and unexplained.
Yeah. Communications.
You have
I do have a
something?
couple.
Okay, that's good.
One was in the memo that the town board accepted Tim's decision reluctantly to step down from the plan. It doesn't say reluctantly, I added that, to step down from the plan commission. His current term was set to expire in June 2027, so we'll be looking for somebody to replace one seat now that we know that Chuck and Gina are both accepting, so we have one seat available. The town board, this was just at the last meeting, so they do appointments of the members and chair people in this meeting because all of their stuff starts in June. So Arlen Kai was appointed the town board representative and chair of the plan commission, as well as other things and some rearranging. I have the whole committees and commission things. the board approved extending the terms of the current plan commission members Chuck and Gina through June 2028, pending you guys saying yes, and you did. And then, yeah, we haven't started to fill the vacancy yet. For the vacant seat. We didn't know if we'd have one or more. The meeting is canceled we were supposed to have the vision work committee work session at the plan commission meeting for July. That we are gonna be missing too many stakeholders for that meeting. Tim being one of them, he's also on the vision committee, so he will be gone, Arlen will be gone, I will be in school that week, and Jennifer will be gone, so really,
What's the latest on the survey?
I got news for you.
Ooh.
That's my next communication. So just so you know, so then July 15th, we won't be having a vision meeting and we will not be having a plan commission meeting. June, we will have a regularly scheduled meeting.
No July planning commission, you're saying?
Correct, unless there's something that comes up where we wanna throw a work session in there, like a different week of that month, you know what I mean, for something that we wanna work on. But other than that, then we just wouldn't have one on the books.
Okay.
Cause that week for most of us is not good, I guess. So, the update on the survey,
Well, I got one quick question.
yes, go ahead.
When in the township did we move away from and to the board setting the chair for the plan commission and not the plan commission electing the chair? So like when Tim was made chair, it was elected by the plan commission,
Well, Tim was appointed by,
or he was voted here by the plan commission.
Yeah, I thought the statute said. Either the ordinance or the statute said that the commission chooses its leader.
I don't think
I'm gonna go
so,
back and look.
yeah.
You can
Like
go back
we
and look at the
just
film, we
did.
voted Tim. Meeting.
Okay.
Not that long ago.
I
I'm
mean,
just curious when
you
that
came
changed.
to us and said you were interested and the board accepted your interest.
No. The current chairman stepped down,
Yes,
or the past chairman stepped down,
Find out.
and I said, if nobody else wants it, I'll do it.
right,
So if you call that coming to you, they.
right, you're like, I will step up.
Yeah, and everybody agreed to that.
Yeah, we had a vote that night to vote in the new.
For, at the plan commission level?
Yeah.
I don't know, that's not I don't think that that's what's written in the plan commission, like as part of commissions, cause the board is actually responsible for the commissions and the committees and who's appointed onto them. So I'm not sure
Okay, I'll look it up and.
how that went, or if that was a formality, or if it was just. So beyond that, the survey, we received 521 responses.
Is that good?
Huge, that is wonderful. They are looking at it being, they try to do like a 5% margin of error, meaning some parts of those might not be. Once they get everything put together, they just wanna leave like a margin of error, so some of those might not be counted, but it would be very few. So there were 48 hard copy responses, along with 3 online responses from that group that went up to 108 people, so that was half of those people. Out of the 1,152 households that the postcard went out to with like QR code and website information, 470 the responses were received, so 41% of those people, those responses. So 41 to 47%. Basically, they're saying that it's a 99% confidence level that you're gathering the data from with that many responses as the whole.
So do we get any of the details? When do we hear what? the town-
Just right now, they're cleaning and merging and organizing the data and then the analysis and then writing the report. So it ended May 1st. That's when the last
I'm laughing, you said they're cleaning the data.
It is, it's cleaning and
That's a
merging
bad
that.
word to use, they're cleaning the data.
Yeah, maybe that's.
Analyzing the data.
I'm sure they know that cleaning, they have that term for a reason. But and organizing the data analysis report in writing will follow. So it ended May 1st, or that's when the responses were to be into the research center. And then they had got this report to us May 13th of just how many. So this is a very. They say that 30% is, that's even what we heard about the last one. That's why our last survey, when we did it, we did get that amount. And so
When you say they and who is?
Survey Research Center, so
Okay.
survey professionals that are doing the survey.
No, okay. A disinterested party.
Yeah, and distant, yeah. They're professionals, they do this for other.
Yep. And that there was the same, we received the same information from the last survey that we did from those survey professionals, is that if you get over 30% of who you sent it out to be, that's the recommended,
That's
amount.
average
That's
response.
the average response. Well, we got over the average response.
Say what was, you had all those different numbers, but when you add them all up, what was our total percentage response regardless of online card or the card copy? So everybody, what percent were we at?
41 to 47 touches.
I don't know. Yeah, I said two numbers, which was you had a 47% response rate for the hard copy ones and a 41 response rate for the online responses. What that totals,
Okay. Somewhere in between.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would
okay.
just
I was
have to
curious.
do the math here. Somewhere in between was the correct answer though, yes.
And what was the
521 responses. Well,
What was the total cost to the township of this survey?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Will we know eventually?
They know, I mean, I can get the information, it's
Oh,
just not
okay.
something that I report on or that
Oh,
that
okay.
I was involved with
No, I'm just curious
getting.
as to.
So I don't know that, like, I don't know.
Okay.
But the approval, I know that they had set aside, they had budgeted $10,000. This had happened not just even this year, but like even last year, it just didn't happen last year, so they've just kind of like continued to budget that
Mhm.
for the project, as a whole.
Okay.
Not the survey necessarily, but the project as a whole. Consulting, the survey, the mailings, you know what I mean? I do know that our, the like reminder postcards that the chairman paid for those out of his own pocket, to the reminder ones, those weren't something that was sent out from the Survey Research Center. They had sent out the initial thing, one reminder, but he had sent out like they sent out the pre and the survey, and then we had sent out another reminder saying that, the cutesy one, that Carl did that.
And who did those reminders go to? Everyone?
Yep,
Every household, right?
yep,
Yeah, I got
Exactly.
one after I did the survey.
yeah. You were like, I already did it, because we were like, it's gonna be confusing to people, but it's another
Why would
one.
be to remind me?
Exactly, reminded you to say, hey, did you do it, or your neighbor or whatever? Yeah, because I'm like, oh, we're gonna get calls, did it not go through,
It's not too late.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. Stephanie, we still do have a plan commission meeting in June though? June
Yes, we do
17th?
regularly scheduled, we don't have any conflicts with that date.
And that was June what?
17th. Tuesday the 17th.
We will celebrate Tim that day.
Oh, good.
So the official last meeting?
I guess so, right? Is that how you understand it still?
That's how you wanted it. You can't say, is that how you understand
Well,
it?
I misread the memo. I thought
That's-
once the board acted on it, I'm all.
No, that's the changing of the guards is usually in June anyways, so it is right on track,
Okay,
but you
fair
can
enough.
stay as long as you want.
Right there, the email. No. It's like, I thought you're ending at your term. All of a sudden I see you're ending in 2 days.
I forgot my term got extended, but.
Last year, you
Yeah.
forgot that last year it got extended.
Yeah.
That's why we keep saying, that's up to you. You said you wanted to go in June, but we'll keep you until June 2027.
Oh, I see what okay, he didn't realize his term.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Oh.
Still didn't say much about my intelligence. That ends communications, right?
Yes, and those were the same as the town board items.
Okay.
So when I spoke to Arlen earlier, he was asking me to update you guys on the same things that I was already gonna update you guys on, so.
And is it permissible for me to go back to my records, including a view of the statutes?
Yeah,
And send an email to us to answer Dave's question?
yes,
Who's
absolutely.
supposed to, who's allowed to appoint the chair?
Yep,
of the
absolutely.
commission? I'll do that and send it to all the members here.
Yep, they just can't respond all to you. You can't respond to everybody.
If it turns out that the planning commission is supposed to vote for their chair, is there any review? Any do-over?
Oh, no, that's up to the town board, because I mean, just the town board is they're the governing body of all the things. So that would be something that would have to be discussed at that level.
All right, I think we're ready for adjournment. If
Well, I got
anybody-
one quick question.
Yeah, sure.
So I've read in our, one of the emails we got was we painted some town roads with the white lines in that.
Yes,
Was that all on our dime or did we get a grant for that? I didn't quite know how to take that.
no, that was, I don't think that we got a grant for
Okay.
that.
Right.
In though, my main resource when I get asked about roadwork questions, I go back to my annual meeting. I have one of the pages out of it, and that's like the 5-year plan.
Okay,
And so in that 5-year plan, it tells me if I get a question, is Bellbrook Road gonna be done this year? And I go, not according to this list, but some of it will tell you this Whistler grant paid for part of this, you know what I mean? So I like, that's a good resource for it. But I believe that pilot program, those the few roads that happened,
okay,
that was just budgeted as a part of the road work.
okay.
Anything else before we move to adjourn? Any of you willing to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
All fair say aye.
I,
You going to finish it up to a post? Okay, thank you, everyone.
We sit at Rip on
I enjoyed talking.
before dark. We're not, 'cause it's been dark all day.
We'll be chat with people who think.
From dark all day.
You're leaving us.
Ah.
You know, you sleep.